So I think I found part of a new sign for the podcast. I need someone to build one like that for me. I also need one that says "the" and one that says "catch." Because, I mean, I can't just take that one. I mean, that'd be crazy, right? Just taking a sign like this. I'm going to turn the camera off now while I take it. Episode 21 coming on right now. Alrighty, folks. It's time for you to buy us a drink. We're officially 21. Welcome to episode 21 of the Circus Catch, ladies and gentlemen. I've got Austin Parr. I've got Jesse Larson. Fellas, welcome to the show. How are we feeling this morning?
Fantastic. Jordan?
I will agree. Fantastic. Excited to be here.
I am also fantastic. This is great. This is a great panel to have on the show. We wanted to get Jackson on the show, but he's actually not allowed back until he eats his hat. So,
Yeah.
Jackson, sorry, my friend. This is a punishment that you imposed upon yourself.
Literally eating his own words, but he's got to eat it.
Alrighty. So we got a lot to get into, guys. We're in the conference finals for both the NBA and the NHL. Before we get into that, though, I do want to bring up something that's been in the news lately. I want to talk about one of the superstars in the NBA. I want to talk about Ja Morant. So for those of you who don't know, Ja Morant was on Instagram Live a few weeks ago, flashing around a firearm, and he got in some trouble for it. The team suspended him from team activities for a few days. He made an apology on ESPN saying that he needs to take better account for his actions. And just a couple days ago, same thing happens again. Back on Instagram Live, back flashing a gun around again. And the team has suspended him once again from any kind of team activities. So definitely a multifaceted issue. Guys, I want to hear your takes on this. What do we think is going on with Ja Morant right now?
This is a tough one. I couldn't believe when I saw the second video of him doing almost the exact same thing, this time in a buddy's car. And you could see that when his buddy was on Instagram Live and he saw Ja do that, like he turned the camera around super quick, because it's like, dude, what are you doing? I think there's a bit of a immaturity factor, and almost like his first apology was obviously not genuine, because he just did the same exact thing again. And I don't think he's really taking into account the repercussions of his actions. And there's so many different ways you can look at this, right? I mean, you have the people that, the young kids that look up to him and he's doing things like that. I don't think he even realizes that he's not setting a good example for some of the people that look up to him, that love him as a basketball player. But, was Dylan Brooks really the problem, or is Ja Morant the problem? Because clearly has some very immature behavior. He's not a leader like he's supposed to be. I mean, he's one of the top 10 players in the NBA right now, easily. He's such a talented player. But as we've seen in the past, when you don't have somebody to maybe lead you or take example, or you don't have that leadership in the locker room, your career, can go awry. It can go in the wrong direction. And we've seen it a lot, with these younger players and stars get a lot of money. They get a lot of fame really quickly because they're so good at their sport, but then they don't know what to do with all that. And it seems like Ja Morant doesn't really know where he's going or what he wants to do with his life or his career, and he's acting very immaturely about it. But it's just very disappointing, because he's such a good player. He seems like he, can be a good human, just from the way he talks sometimes. But, then there's these moments of immaturity like this. And it's just like, I just want to ask him, like, dude, what are you doing?
And I think like the question you want to ask him, Austin, is like, what are you doing? I kind of want to ask him, like, what does your family think of this? Like, what kind of example are you setting for like the other people in your family, to relish from this fame? Like Jordan and I were talking about before the show, he's from a tiny little town in South Carolina, very, very lightly recruited, went to Murray State for a couple of years, but he had a solid family upbringing. So I don't know if it's just the fame, the instant fame, like the the notoriety that he has that's just like overwhelming him. But it just feels like it's overwhelming him, I guess, is the best way I can put it. And it's to your point, Austin, it's so immature, and I don't know how he's going to learn from this. He definitely needs a form of leadership that he obviously hasn't had yet.
We're all kind of taking the path of compassion towards him. There's a lot of people who are just furious and angry and wanting to throw the book at him. But how much, this is what I would say to them. How much do you guys actually care about Ja Morant? Not as an athlete, but as a human being. Like I said, this whole thing clearly is multifaceted. There's a lot of different parts to this. Part of this being the gun, part of this being the immaturity thing, part of this being the lack of leadership. But when I look at Ja Morant, oddly enough, I kind of see a part of myself in what he's doing at that age. Just a couple years removed from high school. We all know what that's like. Not that we're old men by any means, but you know, we've been there. We know that it's a different mentality when you are that young. Fortunately for me, I did have opportunities to be surrounded by a lot of people who did have my best interests in mind. But when I was that age, as a young man, you know, there's temptations all around. And I can't speak to your guys' experience necessarily, but I'll just speak to mine. You know, I had somewhat of a similar upbringing, but sometimes when you are in this box where you feel overprotected or maybe underexposed to the real world, and then all of a sudden you get this this sort of freedom to let yourself be who you want to be, you tend to seek an outlet with people that you have no business being around. There's this tendency to not want to be seen as weak or privileged or anything like that. You want to take on an identity that's not necessarily who you are. And he's calling a lot of these guys his brothers. And that's a term that I used for some of my friends who were just no good for me back in the day. So I chose to be a part of a crew that was destructive, just like he has done. And you know what? They took themselves down, and they almost took me down with them. I've never waved guns around on Instagram or anything like that. But in my own life, I've done a lot of stuff that could have been detrimental to my well-being or to the well-being of others. And thankfully, I was able to get out of that kind of lifestyle. And that's what I would say he needs to start doing. He needs to find ways to get out of that. And like you guys said, find some people who are more mature, who have that leadership quality, who can point him back in the right direction to get him back to who he is.
Well, I think also the biggest thing too is like a lot of these athletes don't use those resources that they have at the top, right? So I'm sure this organization has like a team therapist or somebody they could go talk to, because like you said, like, you know, when we were in our young to mid 20s, like I was definitely not in the same position I am now. And the one thing that helped me kind of open my eyes to reality was therapy. And after 2.5 years of going to therapy every single week, that's something that pulled me out of a dark, very dark place and got me to change my entire life. You know, I went back to school. I'm now working in Montana. Who would have thought that, you know? But it's just certain little things like that where it's just like he could go to a therapist, and of course it's going to take time to open up, but maybe it'll realize and open up his eyes to reality on, you know, who he wants to be and the example he wants to set. And like Jesse was talking about, like, what does this say for your family and things like that? Maybe his reputation will come more to the front of his vision, and he'll realize, like, what am I doing? Like, I should not be hanging out with these people, you know, acting this way, going to a strip club or a bar when we're on the road playing Denver. Like, that's just, those are some of the decisions that you don't really make as a professional athlete. And when you're really young, I mean, we all know, we probably didn't realize that like what we were doing was so detrimental to our reputation. So I think it's a big thing.
You don't have to answer this by any means, but I am curious, Austin. In your own life, what pushed you to that point where you made that decision where you're like, you know what, therapy is the best thing for me right now? When you wanted to get out of that lifestyle, like, what was that last thing that kind of pushed you into that direction?
Well, my brother committing suicide was a giant factor of that.
Mhm.
But I was always against it, like first off, I wasn't really going anywhere. I was being a bartender, just working, just going down this vicious circle of like having no vision, no goals, no nothing, just making a bunch of money, going out, partying. That's all I was doing, like all the time. And then when my brother passed away, that got even worse. And it went into like, I went into like a super dark spiral where like I would literally get off work and I would get a bottle of Crown Royal. And I would drink the entire thing. And like in one night, then we would all go out to bars and I was just getting like blacked out all the time, like almost every single day to a point. And I was just like, my friends started telling me, you know, like you only talk about your feelings when you're at this level of like blackout. Like you never, I was always like the very, you know, I'm the oldest, I'm the strongest. I don't cry. I'm not emotional, blah, 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 all this stuff. But the only time I would ever talk about my feelings was when I was like blacked out. And finally, one day I was just like I woke up like extremely hungover, like so badly. And I was at work at Cheesecake Factory and I was just like, you know, I can't like live like this anymore. And it took a good 7 months before my therapist actually broke me. And we're like, she broke me down. Like I was like crying in the office and stuff. And like once that moment hit, it was just like, okay, I need to change my lifestyle like completely. And so like after 2.5 years of constantly, you know, seeing the same therapist every single day and it's a lot of money too, but it helps, you know, it just helped me out. It just kind of changed my mindset of everything that's happened. I like sharing my story and my journey and stuff like that. I didn't like talking about it before I went to therapy and while I was going to therapy and stuff, because it would just bring so much emotion and like I just get really choked up about it. But it's, I mean, I've gotten to a point now where it's like I can be like inspiring in a way towards people. You know, I bet you there's people that have gone down the same sort of path that I went down, having a tragic family event and drinking and, you know, pulling them. Dude, it's hard to pull yourself out of a dark place. And it's something I'm still really proud of myself for, you know, to this day, because it really did change my whole life. Like I decided in therapy that I was going to go back to school and then, you know, did the whole Full Sail journey, met you guys, and look where we're at now. We've done like so many suicide softball awareness tournaments just to raise awareness. My mom's raised like so much money for suicide awareness. In her front yard in her house, there's a big sign that says like feel free. I forget what the exact sign says, but it's something along the lines of like, you know, feel free to knock on the door if you have somebody to talk to. And that says like suicide awareness. And it's a huge sign. And she's actually gotten like 5 or 6 kids that just knock on the door and just want to talk to her.
It's amazing.
So it's pretty awesome. It's tough. I mean, you know, losing a family member, no matter what, friend, anyone, is tough. But yeah, I mean, we just, you know, we remember them every day. I have you know, my tattoo, this whole tattoo that I have on my shoulder. It's a so he used to want this fading skull. It was like a red skull and a fading sun, red sun. And this is supposed to represent like water. It's not supposed to be straight lines. And this is like a cliff, and the palm trees represent like Southern California and stuff. And I was like, how can I get this tattoo in remembrance of him? And he used to plug in his iPod to my computer all the time. And he downloaded all my music because it would just automatically do it.
Yeah.
And so he fell in love with Kid Cudi. And Kid Cudi was like his favorite artist. It was one of my favorite artists too. So this is actually the Kid Cudi Man on the Moon album cover. You can see like this is Cudi's face with his glasses and stuff like that. And so I took the fading sun and skull out, and this is like the moon on there. Which the face part and stuff, like the details, really, really good. But I'm gonna get it touched up, but then I got his initials on the backside. So it's just like we remember him every day, you know. Sorry, I know I'm talking a lot.
No, this is important. So
that just kind of plays, you know, into this whole talking about John Morant, like young brains, young ways of thinking, styles of thinking. Like they don't really understand the impact that they have on the rest of the world. Like my brother wasn't famous, obviously, but I mean, the turnout that we had at his, funeral and things like that was astronomical. I didn't even know there were so many people that just talked to me and my mom about the impact that he left on them just in his short years of, living. And it's just crazy to think about. And that's what, somebody like John Morant and these young kids, they don't understand their impact on this world, whether they think they have one or not.
Guys, like I said to open the show, we do have the conference finals for both the NBA and the NHL. Let's start with basketball. Austin, you requested specifically to be on the show for one reason and one reason only. Why would you possibly want to be on the Circus Catch this week? Lay it on us.
Well, first off, congratulations to the purple and gold Los Angeles Lakers ending the Warriors dynasty for good. Hopefully for good, though. That Warriors team's going to look a lot different. Shout out to all those haters that said that the Lakers weren't even going to make the postseason. 2-10 to start the regular season. Big kudos to Rob Pelinka. The fact that he got 11th in the general manager of the year voting is absurd. They need to call a recount. Something is wrong with that voting because since he made the trades at the trade deadline, Lakers' best record in the NBA. Not only do they make the play-in tournament, they win their game, win the first round series against the number 2 seeded Memphis Grizzlies, who we all thought that Dylan Brooks was the problem. Clearly, maybe it's John Morant. Who knows? We won't go there. But anyway, second round series, Golden State Warriors. Everybody talking about they have zero chance. Zero chance. Look at all these ESPN analysts. Zero chance. There's only one guy that picked the Lakers, Dave McMenamin. Why? Because he's followed LeBron all of his career. Of course, he picks the Lakers. But none of these guys picked the Lakers. As soon as Lakers won in Golden State, all of a sudden, we got some bandwagon Laker fans now. Get the job done in 6, blowout fashion. Anthony Davis is going to be the biggest key going forward. I think we've said this all playoffs long. He's going to be the key for this bubble rematch between Denver and the Lakers. Obviously, both teams are completely different. LeBron and AD are the only 2 people left in the bubble, whereas Michael Porter Jr., Jokic, Jamal Murray, and I believe there's one more player for the Nuggets remain from that bubble team. But to be honest, I'll give the Denver Nuggets credit. They look like the best basketball team in these playoffs so far. They are the real deal. The Lakers do have their hands full. However, I'll be a little bit biased. I think we are the best defensive team in the postseason, and we showed it against Golden State. Jared Vanderbilt really stepped up, chasing around Steph Curry. Steph's always going to get his, right? There's only one game where he had a monster game. He didn't shoot the ball efficiently. And why? It's because of the length and athleticism that the Lakers have on defense. They're able to hang with these guys. Austin Reeves causing Clay, madness. Clay was very frustrated throughout the series. I think he only shot efficiently one game, 3 for 18 in game 6. That's not going to get the job done. That's going to be the biggest key for this series. Who's going to guard Jokic, right? Are they going to throw AD on there? Is Mo Bamba going to come back and get an appearance? Do they dare throw Tristan Thompson in the lineup against a possible Jokic? Because Denver has traditional center in Jokic and Aaron Gordon playing that power forward position. So super pumped for this series. Vanderbilt should be a great guard for Michael Porter Jr. Austin Reeves, combo of Austin Reeves, maybe Lonnie Walker is going to guard Jamal Murray. Biggest question for Denver is how are they going to play defense against the pick and roll with LeBron James and Anthony Davis? Also, Schroeder, however you say his last name, some people pronounce it differently, but Dennis the Menace has been a big contributor in these playoffs. He's going to be a big deal as well. Of course, Austin Reeves is the third piece. And don't forget, I think D'Angelo Russell is going to be an X factor as well. There's just so many pieces that the Lakers have that are tough to deal with, whereas they can take the load off of Anthony Davis and LeBron every single night. So I think that's what gives the Lakers a chance in this series. Early bold prediction, I got Lakers in 6. So, I think we steal game 2 in Denver. I think we get blown out in game 1. I think we steal game 2 and then win 2 at home, lose game 5, win game 6 at home. So that's what I got.
Lakers had a 0.3% chance to make the playoffs after starting 2-10. They did just that. They got in via the play-in tournament. And look at where they're at now, the Western Conference Finals. Now, Rob Pelinka finishing 11th in the GM voting, absolutely atrocious. Obviously, he should be number one, and it's not even close. But I'd argue that an even bigger atrocity is Anthony Davis not making the all defensive teams. That being said, though, I don't think the Lakers are going to win this series. I'm sorry. I know I don't want to play to any kind of bias of anyone coming on the show. It's just that's how good the Nuggets have been. And it's nothing against the Lakers. I think the Lakers are a fantastic team. And I think that they've really, really earned the spot that they're at. A number one team in the league since the trade deadline. Best defensive team in the league for sure. Jokic is playing out of his mind. Michael Porter Jr. is playing great right now. Jamal Murray's back to 100%. You look at even the next tier of guys on this team. Aaron Gordon's playing lights out. Finally, we're looking at Aaron Gordon as a legit NBA player and not just a fantastic dunker. And this team is somewhat deeper off their bench. I feel like, yeah, you have these games from guys like Lonnie Walker, who I love because he's a former Spur. Also, shout out University of Miami. Sorry, Jesse, but I if you're giving me the keys to the prediction car right now, I'm gonna say Nuggets in 6. Lakers are gonna give them a hell of a fight, but I think the Nuggets they knocked out what a lot of people thought was the best team in the playoffs in the Phoenix Suns, and they did it in 6 games, and they did it in pretty convincing fashion. The only 2 games they lost were in Phoenix, and I think they had a little bit of a breakdown right there. They weren't playing to their potential. I'll say Nuggets in 6, and I might have to join Jackson in eating his hat on that one, but we'll see. I got Nuggets in 6.
History is not on the side of the Nuggets either, guys. They've met 3 times in the postseason. The Lakers have won every series. Every time it was in the Western Conference Finals as well. So also keep in mind the Nuggets have never been to the finals. I want to agree with Austin and say that Los Angeles will win it in 6. But Jordan's right. Denver looks like the best team in the postseason, bar none. So I'm going to say, I think it'll go 7, and I'm going to say Denver takes it in 7.
Do you remember the bubble?
I remember.
Because that man exposed Jokic on defense, and he's going to do the same thing in this series unless they decide to put Aaron Gordon on Anthony Davis. And do you really think that AD's not going to go and get 30 every game if Aaron Gordon's guarding him?
Well, here's the thing. I think Jokic is a better player now than he was in the bubble. After the bubble,
100%. Defense, I still don't think so.
Yeah. Well, after the bubble, that's when he won his MVPs, and honestly could have won a 3rd one this year. So I think he's a totally different player.
Yes, offensively, the man can score and he can facilitate. The way he passes the ball, dude, it is like magic. I love watching the guy play. I'm a big fan of Jokic. I'm just saying he does not have the athleticism or the quickness to stay with Anthony Davis off the ball. He just doesn't. He's almost like you could take Kevon Looney last series. You would see Anthony Davis take the ball on the right elbow. His first step towards the rim, there's not many big man defenders that can stick with that first step. And Jokic definitely cannot. So if I'm curious to see these matchups to starting tonight, obviously Tuesday night, to see who's guarding who. It's going to be a chess match this entire series, to see the adjustments made by each coaches game by game. I'm so pumped for this series, not just because I'm a fan of Lakers, but I'm a fan of basketball. And, it's the conference finals.
Shifting things over to the other conference, the Eastern Conference, we have another bubble rematch, guys. We have the Heat and we have the Celtics. Now, the ESPN odds that were just released from ESPN Analytics have the Boston Celtics with a 97% chance to win this series, while the Miami Heat have a measly 3% chance to win this series. And I will say this. The finals last year, these same ESPN Analytics had Boston at 86% to win the finals against the Warriors 14%. So clearly that wasn't the case. I don't know what it is with this infatuation over these East Coast teams. The Boston Celtics with a 97% chance seems a little high considering they struggled mightily with a Philadelphia 76ers team that wasn't that good, that they had dominated all season long. They struggled against the Atlanta Hawks as well, who took them to game 6, an Atlanta Hawks team that got a new coach midway through the year and isn't all that talented overall outside of Trae Young. That's just my little rant right there. That being said, I think the Celtics probably should be the favorites to win this, but not by 97%.
I think the Heat's little magical run here is going to come to a crashing end. I got to be honest. I really think this game doesn't go more than 5 games, or this series doesn't go more than 5 games. I think Boston's 100% the better team, and nothing really else to say. Obviously, I don't watch the NBA like you guys do, but I don't know. That's just my take, and I really think it's going to be Boston and Denver in the finals.
Boston is definitely the better team. 97% is way too high, in my opinion, because of one reason. It's playoff Jimmy. You ever heard of him?
Yeah, we have.
Guy just shows up in the postseason. He can will this team to victory. He can, have big time impact games that can lead Miami to a couple of victories. I see the Celtics winning in 6. The biggest thing for the Celtics, I think personally, was Jason Tatum's fourth quarter performance in game 6. I think that was the moment where he has been struggling so much in the first 3 quarters in that series against Philadelphia. And then to have a big time fourth quarter, and you kind of heard it in his post-game press conference when he said humbly, I am one of the top basketball players in the world. And he said that live on a live interview. That's what kind of got him to realize that performance. Hey, I'm a really good basketball player on a really good team. I'm the number 1 guy. I am it. Kobe Bryant's my idol. Why am I not playing like Kobe is? Put the team on your back and will them to a championship. Do I think they're going to win a championship? No, they will beat Miami. But Jason Tatum's performance in game 6, obviously he dropped 51 in game 7 against Philadelphia. That kind of changed the narrative for Boston, making them more of a powerful team. Obviously, you got Jaylen Brown. Marcus Smart is like a question mark, always a great defensive player, but he could still score. They still have the pieces around them that Al Horford still, to this day, knocks down seemingly clutch threes all the time. We still think that some people say like, how is he still in the NBA? But still a clutch player. They have plenty of pieces around them to limit Jimmy. Question for Miami, is Kyle Lowry going to somehow be a 25, 30-point scorer? Is Bam Adebayo going to average 20, 25, and 15? Those are the questions for this series, but kind of agree with Jesse. I don't think these games are going to be that close. Maybe the games in Miami would be a bit closer. I would be shocked if Miami takes one of these 2 games inside of TD Garden.
Man, Al Horford was huge in that series against the Sixers, especially in those last few games. Let's look at it this way. There have been mental breakdowns from the better team, the Celtics, in both the first series and the second series. The second series, it almost cost them. They were lucky to get back into that series once Jason Tatum remembered who he was and got back to who he was. Like you said, that 51-point game 7. Him and Steph getting those 50-point game 7s in this playoffs is wild. It's something I've never seen happen before. Jason Tatum, like you said, his ceiling is Kobe level, and I don't think that that's an exaggeration. I think that he can be that guy. That being said, I don't know if they have the mental wherewithal to take on a team who's been playing as good as the Heat. I know that nobody wants to take the Heat. I don't know if they close them out that quickly. I think that the Heat can take them to a game 7. So I'll begrudgingly say the Celtics, but I'll say it goes all the way to game 7.
Besides Jimmy, who do you think is going to step up and be an X factor in this series for Miami?
Well, I don't think it's going to be Kyle Lowry. I don't think Kyle Lowry is that guy anymore. And you say besides Jimmy, but do they need anyone besides Jimmy?
We can't score 100.
I think Bam's going to be huge for them. I think that Bam has had his ups and downs, but I think Bam's going to be really good in this series. I think Bam's going to be Bam once again. It's really going to be Jimmy just playing lights out.
By the way, Jordan, before you continue, I want to bring back, it was about a month ago, I think, right before the playoffs started, that you said, after I had made the comment that the Western Conference, because of how tight it was going to win the finals. And you were like, there's no way in hell that the Western Conference is going to be better than the Eastern Conference when it comes down to it. And now I'm pretty sure consensus of
It's
the
a
three
lot.
says the Western Conference is definitely going to win the championship this year. So I don't know.
We'll see.
just
I'm
want
not.
to point that out there.
Yeah, I just want to point that out.
I'm definitely not retracting what I said. Not at this point, anyways. I'm not as confident as I was, but yeah, I'm not gonna go back on that just yet. I'm not sweating too much.
We'll replay that, when the Western Conference wins the finals, whoever it is.
Yeah, I have to because I feel like I made Jesse look bad a couple weeks ago with his hockey takes. But so all's fair. If the Western Conference ends up winning it, I'll definitely make a fool of myself as well. All right, taking it from the hardwood to the ice. NHL Conference Finals are also here. Jesse, this Eastern Conference matchup between the Panthers and the Hurricanes. The Panthers are not only still surviving, but they are thriving right now with a monster performance against the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I mean, I was expecting Toronto to play a lot better than they did in that second round, and it just did not happen. Florida, again, forcing turnovers endlessly, and it stifled Toronto, and there was nothing they could do. Granted, Toronto is still the laughing stock of the league because they haven't, done anything. And they're one of the original 6 franchises, and they haven't been to the finals since '67. So it's like it's a running joke for NHL fans at this point. But kudos to the Panthers. I mean, going from an 8 seed, and I don't, like we've talked about before, I don't know what it is about the water in South Florida, but damn, it is crazy. But this is where it ends. I gotta say that Carolina has looked like the best team in the league in the postseason, and there is nothing they're doing wrong.
Not that I have as good of a hockey analysis as you, but I definitely agree. Just watching the few games that I have, seeing how they dominated the New Jersey Devils, I think that the Hurricanes look like the stronger team as well. But man, these Panthers, it's something crazy and something really cool to watch, man.
Don't count them out.
Oh, go ahead.
Joe, all I can say is don't count them out. I don't see them winning the series, but I also said I don't see them winning the series against Toronto, and they won in 5 games. So, don't count them out.
I think it's the confidence level factor of once they won that first series against, the number 1 seed, arguably the best team in the entire NHL, that gave them all the confidence that they needed. It kind of reminds you of what happens in the NFL, just to switch sports, where the teams that always come in and barely make the postseason and make the wild card games and have to play that first weekend, once they get past that first weekend, whether they're the best team in the NFL or not, they kind of go on these hot runs, right? You saw it with the New York Giants many years ago, as some of these lower seeded teams just getting on a roll and keep going. And it seems like that's what the Panthers are doing. Impressive 5 games. All everybody wanted to talk about was the collapse of the Toronto Maple Leafs, but why don't we talk about the greatness of the Florida Panthers and how great of hockey that they've been playing? It is just so cool to watch. Super excited for this Eastern Conference series. And, go Panthers.
Boston and Toronto turned it over more than 9, I think it was 9 times a game. I didn't look at the official numbers for the Toronto series, but in the Boston series, they were turning over 9 times a game. You're not going to win hockey games doing that. And Another thing is Carolina plays in their zone more than any team in the league outside of Boston, but nobody did anything like Boston in the regular season. We'll be honest there. And look what that got them. I get that. But the overall style of play that Carolina has put on display specifically in the playoffs just tells me that they are going to win the Stanley Cup.
With the Dallas Stars winning last night, a game which I watched, which looked like maybe Seattle could come back towards the end, but that third period goal by Dallas pretty much sealed the deal. The Stars and the Golden Knights. Edmonton was the last hope for Canada. Canada has still not won a Stanley Cup final since '93 when the Montreal Canadiens did it. So let's delve into this matchup: the Stars and the Golden Knights. How do we see these teams matching up against each other?
Man, it's I want to keep my bias out of it, but man, Vegas looks so good right now, and it pains me to say that. There's no one real thing that is going to win this series for Dallas. It's going to be doing all the little things better than Vegas is. This is going to be a very interesting series.
Just based on what I've seen, the Golden Knights have been so up and down throughout the playoffs where it's been domination one way or another for a lot of these games where they either get blown out or they blow the other team out.
Yep.
And with Dallas, I've seen a lot of very, very high scoring games. Let's take away the game 7 from the last series. I feel like Dallas has been pretty dependent on getting high scores. Again, not my forte, but just based on what I've seen. So I don't really know how to predict this series one way or the other, but I'm a little biased towards Vegas now that my baseball team's moving out there. So Viva Las Vegas, I guess.
The eye test, I just think that Vegas looks like a better hockey team overall in a 7-game series. I do think Dallas can win this series 100%, but Vegas, to me, I think that first season of them making the Stanley Cup probably was the worst thing for their organization and their fan base and their players, because now it's, like you were saying, they just have this like abrasiveness and aggressiveness to them, and they walk around all high and mighty, but it's like, you guys haven't really done anything yet. You just made it to a Stanley Cup. If you win the Stanley Cup, okay, then I get it. Maybe I get it a little bit more, but it's also Las Vegas too, right? There's different style and different types of people that live in the city of Las Vegas. We've all been there plenty of times before. It is different. Like, and I'm using the word lightly, different. I'm sure a lot of A's fans are going to come out.
Oh yeah.
And, it's going to get a little wild over there. But I'm excited for both of these series. I do see this series going 7. Tough to pick a winner, but let's. I don't know. I'm going to go Vegas. By the eye test, I just think that Vegas is going to win the series. I do like what you said, though. I think Carolina does look like the best team left in the postseason.
I want to talk to the selection committee, the NCAA softball championship selection committee. What in the world? How Oklahoma State earned a number 6 overall seed? Are you kidding me? This team lost 11 of their last 13 games. And then they got embarrassed in the first round of the Big 12 tournament to Kansas, a team who hadn't won a Big 12 tournament game since 2007. No, this team maybe is a 13 to 16 range, okay? But number 6 overall, and the 2 teams that finished above them in the Big 12 regular season, Texas and Baylor. Baylor was a 2 seed, is a number 2 regional seed, so they didn't even get a national seed. Texas is sitting as a 13, and they went to the Big 12 championship game. Please, selection committee, explain to me how the hell Oklahoma State is the number 6 overall seed. It makes 0 sense, 100% 0 sense. And man, I love my team, I love my school. But I have to be realistic. It's awful to give a team like this. And I get Oklahoma, the state of Oklahoma runs college softball. You've got 3 schools in Division II that are still alive in the final 16. And then you've got Oklahoma. I mean, back-to-back national championships. They're 51-1. They're the number 1 team in the country. They're the favorites. And then you've got little brother kind of just floating to the side, being the sidekick for OU. And man, like I said, I love my school, I love my team, but there's no way in hell that they deserve the number 6 seed over the likes of Duke and Stanford. But a rant over for that, and I will say there are the 8 teams that I think are going to Oklahoma City to be in the Women's College World Series. Definitely Oklahoma. They're probably going to win a 3rd straight national championship just because that's who they are. They are unstoppable. Stanford, number 9 seed, 12 seed in Northwestern, 13 seed Texas. The number 3 seed Florida State, number 7 seed Washington, and number 2 seed UCLA. The only national seed that will not be represented is going to be Oklahoma State and Wichita State. They are in the Stillwater Regional this coming weekend, and they have beaten Oklahoma State twice already, and they're going to embarrass Oklahoma State again. I have a bad feeling about it. My bias wants to say we're going to win. We're going to win our regional, and we're going to host Supers. But my reality, my brain just says, no, this team is not good enough, and they've shown the last month that they can't win a game, period. So that's my rant over, and we can call it.
If anyone had any question as to whether or not Jesse Larson could set aside his bias, now you know he's absolutely capable of doing so.
Big kudos to Jesse.
Yeah,
I love that.
Terrible.
And that's a great point too. I don't understand why they're not taking the recent games into account on this. I feel like it's they had a cutoff for this, because obviously if you take these last games into account, they don't sniff anywhere near this 6th seed that they got.
No, I get it. They were 39-3 the first 3 months of the season. They took down the number 2 team, the number 3 team, and they were number 2 in the country for 6 weeks. I get that. But then you lost to Wichita State that Tuesday night, and it fell apart from there. There has to be accountability for the recent performances. Austin was talking about it earlier. There's these teams that go into the postseason red hot, and they perform. But if you go into the postseason looking like Oklahoma State has and losing 11 of your last 13 games, you're not going to do – nobody thinks you're going to do anything productive in the postseason. It's just reality. And I don't see them making it even out of their own regional. I just don't. And especially with the fact that Wichita State is in their regional, and they're the team that sent the Cowgirls on this godforsaken spiral downward to hell. And it's just nothing tells me that this team is capable of winning a game right now. That being said, Oklahoma looks like they're going to win every game by 10 and win a national championship yet again.
They've been fun to watch over the last couple of years, even though it is super dominant. But everybody, loves the long ball. Chicks dig the long ball. Dude, they hit a lot of home runs, man. Last couple of years, it's fun to watch, and it seems like every game you get a show with them. And I actually enjoyed turning on, the Women's College World Series. It's been awesome.
Yeah, I just went to the Bedlam game last Saturday, and actually Oklahoma State was winning going into the 7th inning. We had a 2-0 lead, and boom, OU scored 4 runs and just shut it down. And obviously all of our fans went home dejected because we had them. We had them by the throats, and we just let them go. And it was a little heartbreaking, but that's what OU does. They're the number 1 team in the country in batting average, in OPS, slugging. They're the number 1 team in ERA, in WHIP, in strikeouts, and they're number 1 team in the country in fielding percentage. How do you beat that?
Recipe for a championship.
Again.
Well, that'll do it for us. Thank you guys for joining me on this episode of the Circus Catch from Oklahoma and Montana out to California. We will see you guys next week. Peace out. By the way, if you guys can, please send good vibes, thoughts, prayers, all that kind of stuff. NBA draft lotteries tonight, so go Spurs, go. Let me hear you say it. Let me hear you say it. Go Spurs, go. Go Spurs, go. Take for Wemby. Hashtag take for Wemby.